everybody, welcome back to Decatur Dish. And it feels like it's been a long time, even though we do this show weekly. We had to take an impromptu hiatus last week due to some breaking news. So happy to be back. Dan, how you feeling?
I'm doing great. A little nervous about this hurricane. Atlanta doesn't handle disasters well sometimes, so I sure hope that we're all paying attention to hurricane. Is it Helene? Is that the name?
So Tropical Storm
Helene
expected to grow into a hurricane. That is what our meteorologists are tracking. But at 11 a.m. it was officially named Tropical Storm Helene. So we are now tracking that storm, and a lot of eyes for those that might be hearing about this for the first time, because the news did just drop a couple hours ago. It is expected to make landfall in Florida and kind of head our way into Metro Atlanta. So a lot of talk building up around Helene and what that could mean for Metro, because I mean, Dan, you've been a resident of DeKalb County and of Atlanta for quite some time. These storms that come through, I mean, and just 4 years ago we had a similar storm system. Atlanta does not handle it well, like you said.
Yeah, we're not cut out for it. I grew up in Mobile, and we got hurricanes all the time, and we on the Gulf Coast, so we're a little bit more prepared for it. The last few storms that have blown through here, we've gotten clipped, and we've gotten some rain. But if you look at that forecast map, it sure looks like it's going straight through Georgia. And with that is going to be attendant school closures probably, definitely a whole lot of rain, flooding, power outages. If you're watching at home, first of all, keep up with the weather updates from our news partners in Atlanta News First. They got a great weather team. They're always on top of these things.
I just want to show everybody, I managed to pull up, that is where it's currently at.
That looks gnarly. That's not good.
Approaching Cuba, and then wait, take a look at this. This is the the forecast I'm going to try to pull up for Thursday. So as you can see, a lot of rain, strong winds, just a mess coming our way. Now, our meteorologists have been forecasting, and both here and on air, that Thursday evening going into Friday morning during that morning commute, that's going to be the worst of this. So that is what we're tracking right now. Again, a lot can change between now and the end of the week, but we wanted to take the time to talk about this because it's going to impact DeKalb, it's going to impact Metro. It's something that everyone should be preparing for.
I tell people all the time, get your portable chargers charged up, get your computers charged up, get your cars gassed up.
Get your insurance worked out.
Get your insurance worked out. Check on your elderly neighbors that might not have access to things like internet. Make sure they're okay. Make sure the fur babies are okay. If you got any fur babies that are running around outside, make sure you bring them in. And just pay attention to what's going on, and if you can stay home, do, because that's probably the safest place you can be. And of course, your friends here in the media will be working around the clock to bring you the latest updates on it. I know one thing we're paying attention to is the school closures. Everybody's going to want to know. I saw Superintendent Dr. Devin Horton at a meeting last night, and they've already had meetings about this. They're going to have another meeting today. I would expect if we're going to get a school closure announcement, it's going to come between now and Wednesday, especially as the path solidifies.
Really starting to look at this closer as it's officially been named and is moving towards land. I did just want to point out, if you are overwhelmed by this and trying to find a way to prepare, we did create a way you can text us. So you can text the word storm to 470-777-9253, and just texting that number, we will send you a link to all of our coverage. So if you needed to check as we get closer to that end of the week mark, of course, Dan, I know your team has comprehensive coverage and will continue to have comprehensive coverage on this as those school closures and local impacts are being felt.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great idea about the text. I need to do that myself.
With that, I do want to get into some other stories that are happening out in DeKalb County, starting with Decatur High School. Students walked out on Friday to essentially stand with Appalachia High School, and recent calls from the community that's now been spread on statewide for safer gun laws and more measurements at schools relating to guns.
We're failing these kids as a society, and what frustrates me about seeing the walkout is knowing that nothing's going to change. I hate to say that. I don't ever want to tell anybody not to protest or not. Of course, you should do those things. But the kids are doing things that this is an adult problem. We as adults have really dropped the ball and really missed what is important when it comes to school safety. But these kids, they did do a walkout. There's been some debate about whether they will face any disciplinary consequences for doing so. The Decatur schools had just adopted a new policy about walkouts, and there was some miscommunication around that. So they're still sorting through what that means and whether there will be, I think they proposed like 30 minutes of detention, which is, slap on the wrist, really. Druid Hills High also had a walkout, very similar question about whether they would face detention. We were assured that they would not. Kids do deserve an opportunity to be heard here because this affects them, even at the elementary school level. What has surprised me about what happened with the shooting is how much it has stayed in the news cycle. And I hate to say this because this happens in this country too much all the time, and it happens with such frequency that these things are in the news cycle for barely a week anymore, and then it's either some other breaking news thing or another shooting of some sort. And we have continued to kind of grapple with this and wrestle with it. I don't know if that means anything. I don't know if that's going to mean a legislative push for gun reform to make things safer. I do think it's interesting that the young man's father is being charged. I do think we'll start to see more of that. There was another, I forget which shooting it was, but there was another very similar case where the parents are prosecuted for, and maybe that's as good as accountability is going to get. I don't know, but I do find it sad that we as adults cannot get together and in good faith come up with some common sense solutions to these problems, because these lockdown drills are terrifying, especially for element. It doesn't matter how you package it, how you frame it. It scares the mess out of these kids, and they do it, once a semester, once or twice a year, and it's just sort of creating this climate of fear, and it's really making it hard for them to do what they need to do in school.
I can't imagine the toll it's taken on parents.
Sure.
Students at Appalachia returning to class today. That is already so difficult to digest as a community member, as a student,
Yeah.
as a parent. But you yourself, you're also a parent. And your son is the age of these victims that we've seen across the nation, that are dying from this type of violence. I wanted to speak to you as a parent, hearing this happening a little too close to home for anybody. What goes through your mind as your child gets up every morning and goes to school?
I try to just put it out of my mind because I know it can really happen to anyone. Most schools these days are pretty well locked down, so that's good. We've done some basic security stuff. What goes through my mind is this really the best we can do? Seriously, is this really the best we can do as a country? We're already putting so much on these kids when it comes to testing and what their expectations are, getting out of school. They're not going to have places to live. They might not have jobs that are going to pay for those places to live. The planet might be in further turmoil because of climate change. We're putting a lot on these kids, and some of that we have no capacity to do anything about. But with gun reform, we do. We just choose not to, and that's a choice. Not doing anything is a choice. But every time I see this happen in the news, every time I hear about a lockdown drill at my son's school or some other school, every time I hear about some kid getting on social media and saying something out of
Making online threats.
right. Whatever, anger, stress, what have you, I do wonder sometimes, how long do we really intend to put up with this, and is this the best we can do? I don't know. I would hope leaders who actually want to get stuff done could get together and work on that. But short of taking your child out of school, I mean, what can you do?
You know, I think we can all,
Right.
regardless of which stance you have on gun reform, gun laws, we can all agree that no child should go to school and then not come home or
Yeah.
have their entire world and psyche changed because they witnessed a school shooting or endured a school shooting.
Right.
So our hearts going out to Appalachia as they return and try to move forward while also suffering from this fresh wound I mean, nothing can fix this for these students.
Yeah.
We have a lot of stories to cover. I
Yeah,
want to
let's move on.
spend a
Let's-
moment
I
talking
could
about
rail about that for a minute.
Druid Hills here. So Druid Hills, you mentioned, also did a walkout. Unrelated, they have a lot of changes coming their way, including modernization project that is estimated to cost $30 million. So
$30
talk to me
million
about
more
that.
than what was budgeted. So back in Druid Hills High is a very old building. It was built in the 1920s. It was built, I believe, as an elementary school, and it has since been converted to a high school. There's a lot of depth to this, but DeKalb County politics are very fractured along racial lines and have been for a while. There is a perception out there that Druid Hills High is a school for well-to-do Atlantans, and that they've got this infinite amount of resources and that they can pick up some of the cost or what have you. But the facts just don't bear that out. Druid Hills is a Title I school. It's one of the most racially diverse schools in DeKalb County. A lot of kids are on free and reduced lunch at that school. And over the years, whenever a topic of doing a major renovation to this thing has come up, they've kicked the can down the road. And it all kind of came to a head in 2022, where they had a comprehensive master plan, and they had to approve it so the school district would get reimbursed with state money to pay for some of this stuff. And the school board at the time said, no, we're not going to do that. There were some vague reasons about why they pulled it out of the plan. The students at Druid Hills High went and made a video. They took cameras inside the school and filmed the sinks that were coming off the wall, the raw sewage that was bubbling up in the courtyard, the terrible conditions they had to deal with in the gym, and on and on and on. And it made the school board real mad because all of the TV stations jumped on it. I think Atlanta News First did. I know all the other ones did, because it was compelling video. It was something that TV stations would latch onto. And suddenly a school renovation project that should have been a local issue blew up into an almost national story. And at the time, that was an election year, and Richard Woods was the state school superintendent, and he got involved, and he sent his team to investigate Druid Hills High and basically sent a letter to the school board saying, no, you have to fix this right now. And the school board responded by blaming all of the issues on the superintendent, who had only been there for a year, and then firing her. And it threw the whole all this chaos that happened in the district 2 years ago stemmed from the renovation of this school. It became so politicized so quickly that it ended up turning the school district over. Their accreditation body started poking around. The state was breathing down their neck, and they finally, after the state basically said, you will do this or we will not approve funding for your other projects, they added it back in, and they set aside $50 million to do the project. And so we're all thinking, okay, that's a lot. It's a lot to spend on a school. And then we go to this meeting last night, and they dropped the bombshell on us that it's actually going to cost $30 million more. And of course, to do that, you're going to have to go back to this school board and ask them for more money. And you could just hear, I was sitting in that room, and it was like all the oxygen had just the air had gone out of the room, because that was a real, you start to think, this might not happen, or this might not happen in a timely fashion, because we're going to be arguing over this. I don't know what the answer is in terms of how to go about fixing it. Druid Hills High is a very topographically challenged site. It's surrounded by Emory. It's surrounded by adjacent housing for Emory. It's like 11 acres, only 7 or 8 of which are usable. They can't even get a service truck up to the cafeteria. They have to park on the street and then use hand trucks to get food items into the cafeteria or remove food waste from the cafeteria. Certain emergency vehicles can't get to the football field because of how narrow it is and how they've built some of the additions over the years. So I don't think we have heard the last of any controversies surrounding what they're going to spend on Druid Hills High. I did ask, because I've always wondered this, wouldn't it be cheaper to just build a new school somewhere else and on land you own? And they say it's not. They say it would be about the same. So I don't really know how you muster public support for that kind of a project in this day and age, but especially in DeKalb County where everything is so polarized. But they're gonna have to do something, because I was walking into that building last night and the stone steps. There's like this stone steps on either side of the door, and the stone step was wobbling underneath because I guess the rebar had come loose. And so as I stepped on it, I really felt like if enough weight was put on the sucker, the whole staircase was going to collapse. And it was just another reminder of, hey, this school is in real bad shape, and we keep talking about this stuff, and stuff never gets done. What's going to happen when we finally get around to fixing all of these problems? I don't know what the answer is. I do know that we're probably going to be arguing about
Druid Hills.
this Druid Hills High School thing for a long time, which I really shouldn't complain about, because it's great for my business. You know, it gives me stuff to write about. But
For the students, it matters. So $80 million is
it's a lot of money.
The cost right now. Originally 50, now we're
Right.
over 30. Yeah. Again, Druid Hills modernization. You guys, actually, I wanted to just throw this out there, have more on this story on DeCaturish.com. So if you do have an opportunity, go check that out. It's really in depth, and you can kind of get into some of what's going on with that. I want to talk to you about speed cameras. Specifically 5 school zones in Decatur getting these speed cameras because they really want to address the driving issues around these school zones. Now, drivers are getting a warning period, so they do have a little time to kind of get used to this new signage and these new rules, but those citations are going to start coming around sooner than later.
They're going to get warnings, and then come October, and then they're going to start getting bills in the mail because they were speeding. People drive just like bats out of hell around the school zones, and a big part of the reason that they do that is because the police department is so short-staffed. They don't have the personnel to put and babysit these school zones 24/7. This was approved last year, but apparently the process of getting the cameras turned on has been so convoluted that they're finally getting around to actually, the cameras have been there, but they just haven't been able to turn them on and start issuing the fines. So they're going to turn them on an hour before school starts, an hour after school ends. And if you like to drive at high speeds through school zones, you are in for some bad news.
Yeah, break that habit as soon as possible.
You about to get a bill. So you can stop doing that right now. That'd be good. But yeah, and of course with the cameras, you know, there are equity issues that come into play. There are mistaken identity. You know, we personally, not related to this, but we were given a ticket once that it wasn't even our vehicle. So computers can make mistakes and all of that. So there will be that. But I think the main thing that's driving it, aside from the speed, is the inability of Decatur police to adequately staff those school zones.
Talk to me a little bit, moving away from schools for just a moment, the comprehensive housing plan that is seemingly more developed now, coming to DeKalb County and aimed at addressing a number of needs. I mean, affordability, the unhoused, things like that. This is something that we could very much see long-term effects for in the county.
Yeah, well, we're going to put a plan together. They've budgeted $250,000 for it. They're going to talk about what the needs are, what they can do to preserve some of the existing affordable housing stock that we have, what kind of funds we can leverage. I think I've ranted about this on this program before, but these problems are really not local problems to solve in a lot of ways. This is going to require some action at the federal level to address these affordability and inequity issues. But God bless them, you know, communities like DeKalb County and Decatur are developing plans and identifying their housing stock and trying to do something because they're under political pressure to do so. That is one of the reasons I'm always telling people to vote in local elections, because that's the government that's closest to you. It's the most responsive. And so that's what we're seeing, as these people go out and campaign. They're hearing all the time, I can't afford to live here. I need help. I need higher wages. And of course, the county can't do anything about higher wages. But by adopting some policies, they can move the needle a little bit on affordable housing. We create affordable housing projects in this community all the time. Their workforce housing is always a part of these developments. I am glad that they're doing a plan. I'm sure that they will create some affordable housing from that. It's needed. I don't know if it's going to move the needle as much or as quickly as people would like it to, and I think it's going to be up to people at the federal level to really step in and make that a reality.
Would you say you're cautiously optimistic?
I'm cautious. Optimistic, no. I've seen this movie before. They put these plans together, and then the plans, they're nice plans, and they spend a lot of money on them, and they sit on a shelf and look nice on the shelf or in a hard drive or wherever they are. Not optimistic, but who knows? I mean, prove me wrong, DeKalb. Prove me wrong, Commission. Build all the affordable housing so everybody has a nice place to live.
We're going to need a segment called Prove Dan Wrong.
Yeah.
That's going to be
wrong.
the next.
That's what I want to see.
This has been Decatur Dish. We want to thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful Tuesday. Dan, any parting words with our lovely viewers who have joined us here today?
Pay attention to that hurricane news on Atlanta News First Plus. Download the Atlanta News First Plus app. Visit Decaturish.com for all your breaking news in Decatur, and visit supportyourlocalnews.com to support our news gathering efforts.
We didn't pay him to say that. He just does that on his own, by the way.
I pay myself to say that. So.
Have a great day, and we'll see you next Tuesday.